Welcome to another exciting edition of Dying Breed Collectors. Hey everybody, Johnny Boy here from Dying Breed Collectors. Welcome. Today we're going to be doing a House of X issue 2 full spoiler review. Real quickly before we jump into it, my last video, Powers of 10, full spoiler review, something funky happened with the upload, and the first 7 minutes of it are really pixelated. I am aware, unfortunately, I am not going to go back and re-record a 35-minute video because of some pixelation. So if you did watch that, which you should, then hit subscribe. Thank you for bearing with it and dealing with the pixelation, but it does clear up after the first 7 minutes. All right. That being said, let's move on, jump right into it. House of X, Issue 2 by Jonathan Hickman. So I've got the base cover right here. Pretty cool. I think when I saw it in the solicits at first, I wasn't really digging it, and then I saw it in person and was like, yeah, that's fucking cool. It's got a lot of the mutants I like on there. Apocalypse, which I fucking love anything with Apocalypse, right next to Magneto in that new badass suit. You got Wolverine down there in his brown costume right by my pinky. Love that. So yeah, cool cover. This chick over here who I didn't know I would really like, her name is Destiny. We find out about her unless she's already in the comics, and I don't know, but this is the first time I saw her was in this. So that's what's up. This is the only cover I picked up. There are a bunch of variants. Unfortunately for this one, I didn't really care for any of them. I'm pretty picky, as I've said in one of my last haul videos, which you should go watch if you haven't already. Check it out and hit subscribe. You know, I'm pretty picky with my artwork, and you guys hear my voice squeak right there? I was like, I just hit puberty again. My X gene just activated. Wild. I'm pretty picky with the artwork, so not a lot of other covers I like. There was a Virgin variant of this. If you don't know what a Virgin variant is, it's the same cover, but it's going to be missing the barcode, the House of X logo, the Marvel logo, any writing, anything that's not the picture is gone. That's a Virgin variant. I picked up one on eBay yesterday morning, so of course it's not here yet. It'll probably be a couple days. That's what's up. So, House of X 2, what's going on? Well, it opens up. Oh, also, wait real quick. I got my little tablet up and working, so I might be able to use this and use it for some reference. See, we're upgrading every week here at Dying Breed Collectors. So it's a group effort, just by me. So, House of X opens with a quote, as the two previous books have. This time, quote is from Apocalypse. Like I just said, I freaked out over when he's on the cover. You got a quote from him, first page of the book. Love it already. Apocalypse, fucking awesome. So it says, if you can find it in you to survive, if you are worthy, then I will make you into something more than them, something eternal. I have some theories on what that could mean, who he was talking to, but we'll get into that a little later. So, opens up giving a backstory of Moira McTaggart, which in my recent video I was saying that, you know, they're obviously setting her up for something big in this series. I couldn't figure out what it was. It starts out, we get the explanation right here. So, backstory with Moira McTaggart opens up with her being 13 years old, right around the time the X gene activates and you hit puberty and your voice squeaks. And she's 13 years old and she's like deathly ill. There's a doctor at her place checking in on her, and he's like, yeah, you know, she ain't got much longer. And then miraculously next day she's healthy as can be. Okay? Ends up living a normal life. She gets married. She has 3 kids, 8 grandchildren, and has a normal job, turns 74 years old, and dies normal life. And you're like, okay, that's weird. No mention of the X-Men or anything like that. Like, but that's Moira McTaggart. Then you turn the page, and this is where it gets fucking interesting. And it starts out by saying, in Moira's second life, and you're like, second life? What the fuck just happened here? Is this some type of like, can I learn this power? Not from a Jedi. Is that what's going on here? Probably not. It's X-Men, not Star Wars. But like, Second Life? What the fuck's going on? So we start scrolling, and I think at one point it's a little aside of like Moira talking to you, the audience, saying that like, yeah, you know, you'd think like it'd be really scary being reborn a second time in the womb, knowing and being aware of what's going on, because apparently she's reborn with like all the knowledge of her previous life. So she's in the womb, fully aware, and she's telling you, the audience, you know, you'd think it'd be scary, but that's actually the safest place. Like the scary place is outside of the womb, like where you're not safe. So it's explaining that she's reborn with all of her prior knowledge, and she kind of has to play stupid as a kid because like she already knows everything, so she knows more than her parents. They think she's gifted. She gets sent to like gifted schools, and like she kind of has to keep it under wraps because she doesn't know what the fuck she is. It's not like known to the world what mutants are yet at this point. So she doesn't know what she is, and actually as the reader, I'm wondering what you guys thought. The first time I'm reading through this, and it's like Second Life, I'm thinking it's like reincarnated as like, maybe not a new being, but like in a new timeline. Like if you were born in 1900, she was 74, died in 1974, gets reincarnated, born in 1974. That's like my first impression. No. What's going on here is when she dies, she's reincarnated as herself from the beginning of her life again, and she just lives her life out again, but with the knowledge of what happened, which is an interesting take on reincarnation. I've never heard that before, not that I study reincarnation. But so it's saying that this Second Life, though, is harder for her because she knows what's going on. Like with her husband, like she knows all of his flaws already, because nothing changes if you're just a passive player in this Second Life. So if she doesn't do anything actively to change what's going on, everything will pan out the same. So it creates like a boredom factor, and like her marriage doesn't work out because she already knows what's going to happen. And it's saying that at one point she like went to Oxford, where Professor Xavier went, but her life panned out different. And towards the end, she's watching TV, and she sees Professor Xavier like in his wheelchair. So this is clearly like after college, like after Oxford. She sees Xavier on TV, and she's like, hey, I recognize that guy. I went to school with him. Not that they really interacted or anything, but she knew who he was. And it's Xavier announcing to the world that he's a mutant and what a mutant is. And she's like, oh shit, this might be what the fuck I am. Because remember, she doesn't know what she is, and she can't like talk to people about it. So this was interesting. It's like the panel is showing like, well, she then like hops on a plane, and I'm like, oh, is she gonna go talk to Professor X? And it's like the plane crashed and she died, and I'm like, oh, turn the page. In Moira's third life, okay, so she's just gonna keep reincarnating. So in Moira's third life, she decides that she's going to focus on studying like science and biology and evolution, so that by the time she gets to Oxford, she can like mingle with Xavier and like pry his brain and like have like a knowledge of this stuff herself, and not just be like clueless, you know, and have her own angle to figure out if she in fact is a mutant. And she also, it's saying that she also like runs these like studies on herself to prove that she's like not crazy, that like the thing, like, because what if she's just crazy and thinks that she's reincarnated and, you know, she's just insane? She like runs tests to confirm like that is in fact not true. She's definitely been reincarnated. So what she does find from Xavier is that he actually like really turns her off, because she thinks he has this God complex. I mean, why would you think that? Opening that first page of House of X1 with him standing over his X-Men, God complex Xavier, whatever. So she gets that like vibe from him, and it's a turn off. So she starts to see the mutant evolution as a disease, not a gift. So she devotes the rest of her life to finding a cure. Like X-Men 3, the cure. We have the cure. And she ends up succeeding. So she must have been a pretty damn good scientist in this third life. So she invents a cure, and like the one panel, it's her with like a like an Erlenmeyer flask of like, you know, like one of those science flasks, like full of red liquid, and I'm like, cool, like Dr. Jekyll, I'm just gonna drink this and no more mutant. So she comes up with a cure, and then it's like, but she never gets to use it. Boom, because the Brotherhood of Mutants attacks her, and it's Mystique, Pyro, I think one other person, maybe like Avalanche or Sabretooth in the background, but they don't say anything. And then this chick, Destiny, that we find out. So they're talking shit to Moira. They're like, yeah, this cure thing isn't gonna work. And Moira's defending herself like, well, no, like I want this cure for me. I'm not going to force it on anybody. And then Destiny starts talking to her, and we find out Destiny's mutant power is that she can like see the future. And it's funny because when she meets Moira, she's saying that like, oh, but Destiny doesn't have eyes, which is cool. She has like a flat mask with no eyes, but she can see the future. So she's like sitting in front of Moira when she first meets her, and she's like, I can't see her. Like I can't really like. There's like waves of something, like a void where she should be. This is not what I see when I look at a person. It's because she has multiple destinies. She can reincarnate, and that's why she like can't see her. And so she's talking to Moira, and she explains to her that like, look, your cure idea for yourself, like that's not how this goes over. Humans are going to take what you invented. Humans hate us. They are going to attack us. It is going to happen. It is inevitable. And she's like, she starts talking shit at her, and basically Moira is like, well, how do I know you're right? And Destiny is like, because I can see the future, and also, I know you think you're immortal and that you can just keep dying and reincarnating, but actually you're not. And she's like, I foresee you having 10 lives, not infinite, 10. And then she says something else that I think is really important. She goes, maybe 11 if you make the right decision. And I'm like, I'm gonna come back to that later. But remember, we're in her third life now. Destiny says she only has 10 lives. And she's like, we're going to kill you now. I would really recommend that in your next life, you devote yourself to using this knowledge you have to helping your own kind mutants, instead of trying to eliminate them. And then she also says, and if you try doing this again, because of my power, I'm Destiny, I'll know that you're trying to make a cure, we'll find you, and we'll kill you again. Oh, and the other thing, I'm Destiny. So if you try coming to kill me, I'm gonna foresee that, and we'll come kill you first. So she's got her on fucking lockdown, and she calls Pyro over, and she's like, burn this bitch to death, make it slow so she fucking remembers what it feels like to die, which was pretty vicious. So she does that, she kills Moira, boom, reincarnated, fourth life. So again, she devotes this life to science and studying mutants and all this, and she run in the mill, goes to Oxford, meets Xavier again, except this time like looks at him with like a different angle and looks past the arrogance and is like, okay, this guy really just wants to like have mutants find their place in this world, and like, I've been studying evolution, and if this is the natural step of evolution, like this is necessary, like this is what needs to happen, maybe it's not so bad. So then it gives this like really cool page, which I'm going to try to show you, where it's not going to show up well. I tried, whatever. But it's this page of like, and Moira stood by his side through like all of this, and it's like a shot of the 5 original X-Men that's like from the Dream, and then it's like a shot of like giant size X-Men, like that team, and it says through the time of hate and fear, and then there's another one that's like through the lost decade, and it's another team of X-Men, and then until the very end, and it's got a Sentinel standing over her and Xavier, killing them, saying that what Destiny said was right, like inevitably humans find a way to eradicate mutant kind. So she dies, that's 4 lives down, boom, comes back for a 5th life and decides that like, we're gonna jump the gun on this shit. I'm not waiting till I'm in college to meet Xavier. I'm not doing all that. When she turns 13 years old, the mutant gene kicks in. She hops on a plane. She's like, gets what she needs to from her parents, says she steals what she needs from her parents, gets on a plane, goes to meet Xavier, and it's got a panel of like young, like 13-year-old Xavier reading like 13-year-old Moira's mind. And he's like, oh shit. And it says this radicalizes him. So he's like, we got to be the ones like making steps first. So instead of like forming the school, he forms a legion and creates this like isolated sanctuary, I guess kind of like Krakoa, except it's not like a living being, but this sanctuary that I think they called Far Away. And it shows that like they lived there peacefully for like a long time, until inevitably the Sentinels came and killed them. Again, kind of proving that, or showing that what is meant to happen will happen. Like these Sentinels are going to come, so perhaps she's not doing the right thing to prevent that, because Destiny was like, you should be helping mutant kind. So I think she's trying to in these lives, but so far it's not working. So then something interesting, this is why I actually do rereads of these and wait till the next day to kind of let things sink in. I caught something on my reread this morning when I was writing my notes. Remember, we've now gone through 5 lives. The most recent one she died at was 5. Well, the next one, it jumps right to 7. There's nothing about her 6th life. And I was like, am I missing something here? So I then jumped to the end of the book, which I'll get to later, but there's a timeline that it shows for all of her different lives, and it in fact does skip over life 6. So there's something to that, because none of anything Hickman's doing is not on accident. I do not believe that. So we go from life 5 straight to life 7, and so remember, they just built this sanctuary Far Away, it failed. Life 6, life 7, she comes back and she's like, fuck this shit, I'm taking fucking action. I'm eliminating not just Boulevard Task, who invents the Sentinels. I'm eliminating his whole lineage. And it's this like page of her she became a trained assassin, like Ronin style, and is like pegging off all the fucking Trask family. Like fucking everybody. But then it shows that inevitably Sentinels were made by somebody else. It just wasn't somebody named Trask. And it gave this really cool line that was like, inventions are like a fire, they're a discovery, it's a discovery, not an invention. Information is a discovery, not an invention. So it's going to be found no matter what. It doesn't matter who it's by. And so it shows a Sentinel coming out and killing her. This is the end of her 7th life after, all this shit she's trying to do. It's pretty fucked up, pretty sad. Like, this is some deep shit. Like, this woman literally keeps dying and living lives trying to make the world a better place for her kind, and she keeps dying. That's fucked up. So life 8, this gets real fucking interesting. As it said before about Xavier becoming radicalized, it says after this death, the 7th death, Moira's radicalized, and she's like, I can't do the Xavier route this time, I'm going the other side. And she goes to fucking Magneto. She goes to House of M. So she tells Magneto, must explains to him like, this is my 8th go around with this shit, and it doesn't work out for us anytime. I've tried the Xavier route, we're gonna see what you got. So it then is this really cool shot of like, it says like Earth's heroes then took down Magneto, and it's like it's a mix of like Avengers and some X-Men attacking Magneto, and him and Moira, died. So that didn't work out. That's the end of life 8, and then life 9 here, I thought was the most interesting because got that character again. She does something fucking crazy, and she goes to Apocalypse. So young Moira McTaggart is like, 9th life. I don't know what else to do. If Destiny's right, I've got one crack at this left after this. I've tried Xavier, I've tried Magneto. I'm going to Apocalypse, and again, I don't know if I'm looking too much into this Apocalypse stuff, but it's got that quote from him in the beginning of the book. in the last two issues, the beginning quote, it shows in the book where it is used, right? So like the first book had that quote from Rasputin, and then later in the issue, or I'm sorry, the second book had the quote from Rasputin, and later in the issue it shows her saying it. It had that one quote from Moira, and then later in the book it shows her saying it. It never shows Apocalypse saying that quote that's in the beginning of the book about making whoever he's talking to more than them eternal. So my take on that is that is directed at Moira, and he's saying that if she can find a way to survive, he will make her more than a mutant. But then when you're looking over her ninth life, it's saying that she went to Apocalypse. They then waged a war with the heroes of Earth, so it's like the Avengers. There's a couple of them dead. Then it's them fighting the machines. And then instead of showing her dying or saying that it doesn't say she died, it just says, and then with these black panels. So maybe implying death, like, and then she died again, like she has the last few times, but also it doesn't explicitly say that she died. And I think Apocalypse was promising her immortality. So where there's a flaw in my theory right there, though, is then that it goes straight to life 10. So you're like, well, if she's reincarnated in life 10, she must have died in life 9. And I'm going to talk about that again in a minute because I got something else to point out. So life 10 brings us to, I know you can't see it, whatever, her meeting Xavier on the bench, which was previously in, I think that was the Powers of 10. I think that was the opening to Powers of 10. So it's her meeting Xavier, saying that line of "you're so strong," and then she's like, "Hi, Charles," and he's like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "Read my mind," and he goes, "Ah, well, now we're filled in." So this is the 10th life she's lived, 7th or 8th time meeting Xavier. He now remember, this is our current timeline that we're in the beginning of House of X. So he meets her before he forms the original X-Men. She fills him in on this. They then live out the history of X-Men as we know it, with him knowing she's a mutant, but like it not being known to anybody else, and him knowing the inevitability of what's to come, which is why they're then at this point trying this Krakoa thing, because they see this as like the way to do something they haven't done before. Although, to me, it kind of sounds like it's the same idea as that far away thing. But obviously, we're not filled in on all the details yet. So, okay. In Powers of 10, it was also showing, those different time hops, which we know play off of this 10th life of Moira. So, where my head is at, maybe you agree, fill me in if I'm wrong in the comments. We've got Xavier, okay, we've got Moira and Xavier meeting when he's young. She fills him in on all this shit. They then form Krakoa 10 years later. While Krakoa is being built, Mystique is recouping some information that we don't know what is important yet. Then, after that, 100 years later, Xavier, Magneto, Wolverine, and 3 or 4 other mutants are the only surviving members of the people we know on Krakoa, and they had just sent Rasputin and Priest to also get information, kind of lining up with the same thing that happened in that first timeline. From there we know that 1,000 years later, the war between mutants, humans, and machines ended, which to me sounds like Moira failed again, because we know that's the eventual outcome. But if you remember in Powers of 10, there's that conversation between Nimrod and the librarian where he's like, yeah, there was that unexpected end to the war. So I'm thinking maybe it's going to have something to do with that information that they've been having people collect in the different timelines. Or it's going to have something to do with Apocalypse and that 9th timeline. So why I think that there's something to that, like, I'm going to fill you in on that. Remember I said earlier that there's that timeline, the actual timeline? I wish you could see the image. In the back of the book, there's a timeline of all her lives, right? Well, it has the end point to each one of her lives. You know, the first life she died when she was 74. The second life she died in that plane crash. Like, there is that definitive end. Well, Life 9, which is the one with Apocalypse that has the panels and then, the timeline goes on. Like, it's weird. There's like, it's a solid line up into a point, and then it becomes a dotted line. But it doesn't end. Like, the rest of the lines end. The 10th timeline is the same way. So there's something to that there. Like, those timelines are Life 9 and 10. There's something weird where they're ongoing, and we're not filled in on that yet. So I think Apocalypse is going to be playing a role in all of this. Also, I know you shouldn't always judge a book by its cover, especially comic books, because sometimes they have nothing to do with what's inside. But I know in the solicits, the base cover for House of X5 has Apocalypse on the cover, so like, I refuse to believe this is the last we've seen of him. He's got a quote. They don't really explain explicitly what happened to them, so that's pretty interesting. That's where we're at. So that's my spoiler review, man. I think that Apocalypse is going to have a big role. And that's all I got right now. I can't wait for Powers of 10 issue 3, or issue 2. Powers of 10 issue 2 comes out next Wednesday. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't alternate that. I'm pretty sure the next week is Powers of X3, and then we get House of X3. So that's a few weeks away. So leave some comments below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know where your theories are, what you're thinking is going to happen, what you caught that I missed, because I certainly don't believe that I've cracked the code on all of this. I don't think that's true. If you haven't already, hit like, hit subscribe. Check back in a few days. I'm going to be doing a haul review of a few single issues I've picked up this week, and actually as soon as I upload this, I'm going to hop over to a couple LCS because I'm off today and see what else I can find. So I'll be doing that, and next week, Powers of X issue 2 spoiler review. Until then, thank you for your time. See you next week. Johnny Boy out.